There's a house on East Delmar Street where the phone still rang the next morning, and nobody was left to answer it. 3 women came home from a graduation party in the early hours of June 7, 1992. The cars stayed in the driveway. The purses stayed on the floor. The money stayed in the wallet. The little dog was still inside, pacing. One of the beds looked slept in. The only thing broken in the entire house was the porch light, and the 3 women were never seen again. A message on the answering machine, gone before anyone could save it. A convicted kidnapper who looked police in the eye and said he knew they were dead, then said nothing more. 5,000 tips, 3 decades, and a mother, her daughter, and her daughter's friend who simply stopped existing. This is Buried Pages. June 6, 1992. Springfield, Missouri. It was graduation day, and for 2 girls in this city, it was supposed to be the best night of their lives. Suzie Streeter was 19. Her friend Stacy McCall was 18. That afternoon, the 2 of them graduated from Kickapoo High School, close friends, finally done with school. The whole summer stretched out in front of them. They spent the evening the way you'd expect graduation parties, moving from one friend's house to the next. The plan at first was to drive to Branson the next day and spend it at a water park. Around 10:30 that night, Stacy called her mother, Janice, to say the plan had changed. They were going to stay in town. They'd figure out where to sleep. While the girls were still out, a 3rd woman was home for the night. Suzie's mother, Sherrill Levitt, 47 years old, a hairdresser who ran her business out of the house with something like 250 regular clients. She was a single mom, and she and Suzie lived together at 1717 East Delmar Street. At 11:15, Sherrill was on the phone with a friend. They talked about something completely ordinary. She was refinishing a chest of drawers, and she was asking about the paint. That phone call is the last time anyone is known to have spoken to Sherrill Levitt. Late that night, the girls' last party wound down. The house they'd meant to crash at their friend Janelle Kirby's was packed, too crowded to sleep. So Suzie and Stacy made a small, ordinary decision. They'd go back to Suzie's house instead, Sherrill's place on Delmar. Quiet, room to sleep. They left in 2 separate cars, sometime around 2:15 in the morning on June 7th. It's a 10-minute drive. Both cars made it. Both were found parked outside the house, and that is where the trail ends. The next day, when nobody could reach any of them, friends started to worry. Later that day, people came by the house on Delmar. Accounts differ on exactly what time the first friends arrived, somewhere around midday. But they all described the same impossible thing. The door was unlocked, and inside the house was completely, eerily normal, except that the 3 women who belonged in it were gone. Let me walk you through exactly what was left behind, because this is the part of the case that has haunted investigators for 30 years. All 3 cars still in the driveway. All 3 purses inside the house, on the floor of Suzie's room, everything still in them. Keys, driver's licenses, medication, cigarettes. Around $900 in cash, a deposit from Sherrill's salon, untouched, still in her purse. Sherrill's bed looked like it had been slept in. And the family dog, a Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon, was still there inside, agitated, jumpy. 3 grown women do not walk away from everything. Their money, their car keys, their medicine, their pets in the middle of the night. Not by choice. You'll hear this case described as having no signs of a struggle. That's almost true. There was exactly one. On the porch, the glass globe over the light was shattered, but the bulb inside was still whole. Someone or something broke that glass. Nobody knows when or why. And here's the detail that turns this from a tragedy into a nightmare for investigators. In those first hours, before anyone treated that house as a crime scene, as many as 10 to 20 people came through it. Friends, family, people desperate to help. They straightened up. They emptied ashtrays. They washed the coffee cups. By the time the police sealed the house, whatever the scene had been trying to tell them was already half erased. And then there was the answering machine. When people came looking, there was a message on the home answering machine. Stacy's mother, Janice, described it as strange enough to matter. But in the confusion of that day, the message was played back and then by accident erased. Its exact words were never written down. To this day, no one can tell you what that message said. Police have long believed it might have been a clue, maybe the clue, and it's simply gone. I want to be careful here because a lot of retellings get this wrong. That erased answering machine message is one thing. Separately, in the days after, the family and friends staying at the house answered several disturbing phone calls, obscene, taunting calls. Two different things. People online have blurred them into one. The honest truth is narrower and stranger. One strange recorded message, erased before anyone could keep it. The disappearance of 3 women at once turned Springfield inside out. The FBI joined the investigation on June 9th, 2 days in. And by June 10th, more than 20,000 missing persons posters had gone up across the city. 20,000 posters. For 3 people who, as far as anyone could tell, had vanished out of an ordinary Tuesday night house without leaving a single footprint pointing the way out. I want to stop here for a second, because this is what makes the Springfield 3 different from almost every case we cover on this channel. Usually there's a thread, a body, a scene, a motive, a suspect who makes a kind of terrible sense. Here there's nothing. No bodies in 30 years, no blood, no ransom, no note, no reason, everything of value left behind down to the dog. 3 people who were loved and looked for by thousands and who left this world through a door that was still somehow unlocked. It's not the horror of knowing what happened to them. It's the horror of not knowing anything at all. Over the years, the case has circled a handful of names. It's important to say clearly, no one has ever been charged with the disappearance of these 3 women. Everything that follows is a lead, not a conclusion. The name that comes up most is Robert Craig Cox. In 1992, Cox was living in Springfield. He was a convicted kidnapper recently out of a Florida prison where he'd once been on death row for a murder, a conviction later overturned. Years after the women vanished, Cox told investigators something chilling. He said, quote, "I know they are dead, I'll say that, and I know that." And then he refused to say anything more. He offered no bodies, no location, no proof, just a claim dangling that he has never backed up and police have never been able to break. Cox has denied any actual involvement. It's a statement, not a solution. Other names have surfaced and faded. Dustin Recla, an ex-boyfriend of Suzie's, tied to an unrelated break-in at a mausoleum, was looked at early, cooperated with police, and was ruled out. Another local name, Gerald Carnahan, is sometimes mentioned. He was later convicted in a completely separate murder from 1985, but has never been connected to this case by any evidence. It's worth naming them only to say, these doors were opened, and they led nowhere. Investigators have chased tips for decades, sightings, tunnels under the city, stories of the women being sold or moved. More than 5,000 tips. None of them has ever produced a single one of the 3. In 1997, 5 years on, Sherrill Levitt and Suzie Streeter were declared legally dead. Stacy McCall was not. Her parents refused to sign the papers. They would not close a door on their daughter that the world had never been able to explain. More than 30 years later, the case is still open, still unsolved. The FBI still lists it. Every few years, there's a new tip, a new theory, a new anniversary, and the same silence at the end of it. 3 women went into a house on East Delmar Street after a graduation party. They left their cars in the driveway. They left the money in the purse. They left the door unlocked and the dog inside and a bed that looked slept in. And then they left no trace of themselves at all. Where do 3 people go and take nothing, not even the dog, and never once turn up again? 30 years of people have tried to answer that. If you have a theory, I genuinely want to read it in the comments. Their pages aren't closed, they're just buried.